It it was bad. Wasn't that bad. It was pretty bad, but I mean, a lot of the death actually was basically as they got up in there. The white people, any white people inside of Germany were dead. They were killed. There were no white people left. They were just the black people had basically gone through and killed off every white person that they had encountered, pretty much. Just slaughtered them. And some of them were actually I forget what they did exactly. They might have thrown some in the water. I don't know. There were bodies, like I said, there were bodies from people washing up on foreign shores for a while, just in the harbor. You know, white people that had stayed behind or been in Germany, basically, or in other places. The black people were just slaughtering all white people, and so when we hit Germany, we hit it really hard, and we were positive that the people that were behind this were there. So, and like I said, there were a line of ships. Like there's photographs of everything. We beached every single one of the boats, and they didn't shut the engines down. They just kept pushing as far as those propellers would actually propel them, which wasn't all that far, but it was far enough. And then they gathered behind them and peeked around, and were hitting it. And like I said, there were battleships. I took my smaller cannon battleships didn't have range on the tanks, so we beached them, and they were actually like shelling the what's called, because I had some of these battleships where it's basically like a big steel plate and a cannon sticking out, so it's like an 8-inch gun. It's not really that much, but you know, if you keep shooting a tank, eventually you will penetrate. So it was like almost point blank, like right into the tree. Like the tanks were sitting right there at the tree line, and they were hitting the ship and basically putting holes in the ship like crazy. And so they were shooting directly across, and they stayed at their stations. I think they stayed there until they died, because they were not going to stop. They were going to keep hitting that tank. And they took out quite a few tanks. It was a good fight. It was a really good fight. I mean, I didn't want a good fight, but basically it was, you know, one of my smaller destroyers, 8-inch cannon or whatever, took out 3 tanks or 4 tanks or something like that. And it just went up there, took it on the side, and just, like in high tide. We attacked during high tide. So, and there were like 30 tanks in one spot. I mean, they had a lot of tanks. There were, people say there weren't tanks there. Oh yeah, there were tanks there. There were a lot of tanks. And there were guns and everything, like those the black Nazis. I think they were black Nazis. They had everything. They had tanks there. They had everything there. And like I said, I was sacrificing my fleet. I had 400 ships that were beached that were smaller cannon. The big ones I kept out at sea because they didn't do any good, except for that one. They're on I think it was Omaha or one of those beaches. You know, it was a 12-inch cannon. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, beach it, sacrifice it. But the 18s I kept it in the water. I think I might have beached one of them where they couldn't get through, and I was like, yeah, okay. No, I think I kept the 18s in the water. I kept the 18s out there at sea, just in, and the 18s were cruising up and down the coast. One would go this way, the other one would come this way, and they were crossing in the middle, and they were just power and just boom, 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 just doing lines across because there are that many of them. There are that many black people, just, you know, there are just hundreds of them that like they came up to the shore. I'm pretty sure that's the way it went down, and that's why we started carpet bombing, you know, and the planes were going through. But I mean, it was really well defended, and the fight actually raged on all day, if I'm right. But I'm thinking, but I'm actually referring to like World War I going. I mean, it was a good long war. You know, there was a lot of, basically all the, you know, they had gone behind the defenses, I'm pretty sure. And so it was a good long war, and they were just slaughtering as many white people as they could throughout there. We had gotten all the women and children to America as much as we could, and some of them had gone way up into Germany, up high. So there was still a pocket up high, running away from, like at the very, like up in Poland and past Poland, but they went up as high, but then it gets really cold, so they couldn't really go any further. So we were trying to get them off from there. And we're just basically evacuating all of Europe of women and children because the black people were just rushing up from Africa, and they rushed around. They literally came up through Spain, and they were rushing around from around the side, hitting Germany from this side, and that's where they got in. when they came up over the lake, we were holding them just above Spain on that side. It was a big war, and then they started to come around the side by the lake right there. There's that big huge lake right there, and they started coming in from the side, and that's where some sympathizing black people had gotten and then let them in, and then that's when there was probably like 6 months where they just ran wild, and then they were all just coming in and coming back and going back around to do a pincer maneuver on my other troops that were holding down the other black people. So it was this big long thing, and they were just like all of every black person probably in the whole world was there, probably. Like it was pretty bad, and they were just slaughtering the white people. You know, it was total, complete destruction. So that was World War I going on World War II, somewhere around in there. Like I say, and like I say, JFK, Jimmy Carter, and all of them, they were part of it, I guess. I mean, as far as I could tell, because they were with them. So anyway, and then it's just a matter of finding all the other ones. So some of them were deported out, and some of them, you know, later on, we did take some surrenders, and some of them we didn't. So, I mean, I'm not an exterminator, but, you know, they invaded Paris and everything else, and then they burned all the evidence and film. So, you know, anyway, it was them, you know, and they're still at it. So anyway, tried to cover it up, but basically we beached the ships. We were just like, you know, there were 30-footers, there were 80-footers, there were big long 300 and 600-foot ships, and just beached up on the shore to, you know, to use them as cover, and just shooting from the top deck down onto, because in order to get up high, you know, with those big ships, we could get up in there and then just, and they were just shelling into the ships and putting holes in my ships, and so, and they were using the ships as a fortress to get a foothold, because there were a lot of them, and they all had weapons. So, you know, there was no, you know, it was really bad. It was full-scale war. Full-scale race war. And I was being apprised of the situation. I was the one that made the call to go ahead and beach all the boats. I was like, beach them, just keep the 18s and the 16 and the 12s out, you know, the bigger stuff, because I only had like 7 or 6 of those or something like that, and they were running the perimeter. And like I said, I think I even had war galleons at one point. You know, I had everything. If it floated, it was there. You know, because the black people were just, you know, basically they pretty much picked up a gun and were just using knives, whatever. I'm pretty sure. But that was basically World War I going on World War II. Anyway, they removed all the facts. Like, we have film evidence of them inside my Auschwitz and inside my other sites, and that's when the death actually happened. Like I said, it wasn't German. It wasn't, you know, they were only German in the fact that they were wearing German uniforms and pretending to be Germans, but they weren't. They didn't speak the language, I don't think. No, they didn't speak the language. They were just wearing the uniforms, and they were black. Very, very black. So, anyway, they had just stolen all the uniforms, stolen the tanks, and just killed, slaughtered. So, like I say, I wasn't prejudiced. You know, it was all by evidence. We had the film. And that's what was going on. So when they say Germans and all this, if they don't mean Germans, like, what you know as a German is a white German. These are black Germans. And basically just South Africans. Zombie tribe, pretty much. They're a zombie tribe. And South Africans. They weren't even black Americans. Black Americans is another group. I mean, and technically black Americans had just as much to fear. They, like I said, all that stuff, like don't let your race get, whatever, that's South African, that's zombie. But I mean, it's just they use it like an excuse to kill. Anyway, I don't, you know, like, I like black women. A lot of black men are very good and very cool. And I like them too. I didn't want to have to do that, but they gave us no choice. It was them or us. So, and I am Lucifer, star. So, I was one of the only people that could be like, let's do it. So we did. You know, I was very careful. It was a 5-year investigation. They were being all sneaky about it, you know, and then we were just like, and then that's when they started going, you know, just shooting everything up. You know, their game was up, the jig was up, and then so they just, you know, I was almost like